Hey, in this video I want to share a story how once it took me 3 attempts to get one B2B SaaS startup from no pipeline to 21k weeks. So my client M has been working on the SaaS that helps companies calculate their carbon emissions. And as he's been saving organizations multi-six figures in sustainability fees each year, companies saw it as a great bargain to pay him £6,000 to £14,000 a year for his product. So he came to me with a problem that not enough organizations in the pipeline fit his ICP. As a result, he started considering changing his business model and going down in price. And this would hurt his profit margins, but the idea was to lower the entry barrier to keep signing new customers and continue capturing the market share. I explained that this was the path to nowhere. You don't grow your company by lowering the prices, making it harder to serve customers at the right level, but instead you grow it by predictably getting a ton of buyers who fit your ICP to be entering your pipeline. So first thing I advised was comparing all the channels against one another. So first, we saw that 90% of the business was coming from industry events, and attending each was costing them something like between 5 and sometimes 25 grand. And even though this was working for years, long term they knew this is not something they want to continue relying on, because it takes a lot of effort to prepare, travel, and all this stuff. And from each event you're not guaranteed to come out with a certain number of customers. Well, you know how it works. It's not that when you're traveling to an industry event where you paid for the booth and stuff like that, that you know that you're going to be getting 10 customers out of it. Unfortunately, it doesn't work this way, and that's why one of his key objectives was for us to design something which would be a lot more predictable, because you cannot scale your company without having such predictable customer acquisition channel in place. So while 90% of the business was coming from LinkedIn, 10% was actually coming from LinkedIn organic posts, which they were completely overlooking. So one of the first things I noticed was seeing that they had 25% higher close rates with shorter sales cycles from LinkedIn organic. So the sales cycle of 5 months was an average for industry events, and from LinkedIn organic it was only 2 months. And if you put effort into 10 different deals at each channel, keep in mind like how many more you can sign if the deal cycle is a couple months shorter. Over a couple years timeline, it ends up being a fortune. So it turned out that the most of his business was coming from industry events, but interestingly, LinkedIn was giving higher close rates with shorter sales cycle. That's why I suggested that we want to boost the organic lead flow. That's why I shared the MAPS content framework, so that we could get his inbound opportunities from organic to be more frequent. And I recently shared it inside DenisShatalin.com/newsletter if you want to find access to it. Thanks to this framework, maximizing attention from the relevant audience, he would invite people who engaged with his posts on a demo and then connect them with his account executive. But posting content wasn't everything, because the thing which I knew is, okay, if LinkedIn organic is giving us decent traction now, this means that high chance LinkedIn ads would be working well as well, because you know that successful ads often look like organic posts, and if organic posts are getting us sales, why shouldn't we do and give a try to LinkedIn ads? So content alone has already gotten us from 1 to 2 to 4 to 5 demos a week, but I knew it must be paired with a paid traffic channel for us to really be in position to grow at the pace we want at any moment. This is particularly important when you have aggressive scaling plans. You want to have the leverage to buy as much growth as you want with predictable CAC. So as we were seeing traction from LinkedIn organic, the most natural step was using LinkedIn ads. By that time, I had already spent over 30k in my own LinkedIn ad campaigns, which once got me to be averaging 25 bookings a week. So I suggested targeting LinkedIn groups with a high density of our ICP. For a few weeks, it was working great. Cost per demo was around $350. Show-up rates were above 85%, which is very good. And there was decent intent at these meetings from buyers. As we entered month 3, however, I saw a bad pattern, because LinkedIn ads aren't sustainable long term. As we ran ads through those groups, the new targeting options weren't performing. That's when M faced the same issue as me. Basically, LinkedIn ads algorithm isn't smart enough to figure out who to show your ads to unless you spoon-feed it the great audience yourself. Seeing our cost per qualified demo begin climbing from 350 to 450 and then to 550, we were still profitable, but I knew that this wouldn't be as appealing at scale, because the end goal is adding an extra few mil without sacrificing the profit margins. It doesn't matter, like, especially if you are not backed by 1,000 different VCs, well, you in the long run do want to have sustainable profit margin to grow your business. That's why I suggested that, look, I knew that there would be this issue repeating over and over again, that LinkedIn is not able to learn who to show your ads to after you have gone through the best types of groups and have run thought leadership ads, unlike Meta. And initially, thought I was crazy because in his mind, his corporate sustainability demographic couldn't be further from Facebook, which I totally understand. But I've already had experience using Meta ads to get a few of startups past 1 million ARR back then. So I explained the following. First of all, massive reach. Meta has most users than all other platforms combined, of roughly 4 billion right now. Secondly, it has the smartest algorithm. They have the smartest algo, allowing you to get in front of high intent buyers indefinitely when you know how to use it right, comparing with Twitter and LinkedIn and even Google. And even corporate folks are all there, even though many of them pretend that they are using LinkedIn for work, and no doubt they do, but while spending 15 to 30 minutes a day on LinkedIn, all these corporate sustainability people in reality spend a couple hours scrolling Facebook and Instagram, and then they spend hours there, and that's why in the end it all works. And oftentimes that's why you even have a lot of them buy coming from Instagram and Facebook, simply because on LinkedIn, they get bombarded with 1,000 different offers and they compare you with 1,000 alternatives, while when they are checking on their friends' updates, they are not in this defensive mental state, to put it this way. So first thing was launching the instant form campaign. I often suggest clients start with it since it has fewer variables and can be launched quickly. You get your offer out, get people interested, disqualify anyone who is not your high intent ICP, and invite the rest of the prospects on a demo. I love this funnel because unlike many other trendy things in the space, you don't need to put hours into creating and optimizing the pages or taking weeks to record professional webinars. So instead, it's a direct way to test your offer angles and see which of them are working best on paid traffic. For 4 weeks, it performed very well, giving us consistent bookings and deals. And the screenshot on the right here shows how has been celebrating few leads coming in within 1 day. So now we had a good mix of couple deals a month coming from LinkedIn organic, combined with the new paid system getting traction. By the way, here I want to mention that if you're trying to scale past 1 million ARR and want to discuss how I can help you get there, go to saascamp.com, because I already gotten 14 different startups beyond this benchmark. Now, problems we faced with instant forms. After 2 months of running it, I didn't like that we're only staying at 2x return on ad spend without Meta gathering new insights about our audience. Don't get me wrong, it's been a huge leap forward comparing with where we started at, because we went from founder randomly needing to fly out to all these industry events hoping he finds some business out of it after dropping 10 to 20 grand on each, to firstly having some traction from LinkedIn organic and getting a couple deals from there. But mainly what I think him and myself valued the most is having one predictable source of customers coming in. So what I didn't like was that the close rates were between 10 and 15% from the paid channel, which would mean would need to staff a larger sales team than I would want him to. That's because if you're closing at a 30% rate, at scale you'd get away with much less overhead comparing with running your funnel at a 10% close rate. Also, close rates under 20% aren't as healthy, since when a tiny thing goes wrong, you suddenly become unprofitable, and we don't want to be risking that. As M's team has already closed dozens of clients, I knew his team's sales game is solid, so the bottleneck was getting the right people with high enough urgency on our calls. A/B test against the sales deck funnel. So I suggested to M to test the instant forms versus the sales deck funnel. As you can can guess from the name, this one does require a correctly done sales deck, but it can get relevant people on calendar without extra logistical friction. The biggest strengths are the following three. So first of all, it's pixel-based optimization. With instant forms, you're not using pixel, and that's why Meta cannot become smarter over time, understanding who are those exact users with certain behaviors that you want to be getting on meetings, who are the easiest for you to sell to. However, when you are using pixel-based funnels, you're able to feed Meta all this information so that over time it starts to bring you better and better prospects. And that's exactly why so many of founders I work with love the idea that I help them build this all in-house, because after you've been conditioning your pixel for a year, you have an extremely valuable asset inside your company. Secondly, higher urgency messaging. So we refined our messaging to highlight the 6-figure cost of inaction and to attract more people who already are aware of all this costs that they're going to be going through if they don't take action on it. Because as you may understand, it's always easier to sell to people who know it's urgent and know all the challenges that are going to come up if they do nothing about it, rather than needing to make couple sales at once, selling someone on the fact that they need it, that their cost of inaction is much higher, and that you are the right company for them to go with. If you need only to sell them on the third, as you guess, it's 3 times easier for you to sign a customer. Thirdly, it's no logistical burden. So you don't need as many SDRs for this approach, since the prospect clicks the ad, studies the deck, and books the demo. Saved a few weeks by simply taking all the templates I already have inside SaaS Camp and got his deck funnel launched in 2 days. So now this was finally working the way I wanted. After we've made this transition, the numbers started looking much healthier, to say the least. Cost per qualified call dropped from 450 down to 300. And as we analyzed loads of insights from prospects from the past months, we nailed the urgency angle in our messaging. So now the sales team was reporting that people are just easier to sell to. The screenshot below is just one time that landed multiple annual contracts the same week, collecting 20K in one 7-day period. Also booking Pizza Hut as one of the prospects the same week. And that's a quick comment to all those founders who think that you cannot land enterprise opportunities from Facebook and Instagram. Well, you couldn't be further from truth, period. So now many leads were bringing the decision makers into the discovery call, all already aware of expensive 6-figure cost of inaction attached to not doing anything about the issue. So you know why a consistent cost per call is all you need to reverse engineer scaling to 3 mil ARR and beyond? Let me show you. We've been staying between 300 and 350 per SQL with this funnel for more than 6 months now. Thanks to high intent of the prospects, they've been closing at a consistent 20% rate with an incomparably shorter sales cycle than saw from pitching at industry events, where a lot of people first needed to warm up and go through a couple introductions, then it was another few months to getting to the right decision makers. And you can imagine that if you are already getting in front of the decision maker who has urgency in his mind, how much easier it is for you to sign them. So knowing it costs us $350 to get in front of the motivated decision maker, and 20% of them are going to be wiring us money within 4 weeks, this meant the following: 3.5K to get 10 opportunities, 20% buying the 6 to 14K product, and for this calculation, let's take 8K as the conservative median. Every 3.5K spend, would be collecting 16K pounds, sometimes also getting back-end upsells from larger companies for custom add-ons or urgent implementation. And 3.5K US has been consistently turning into 16K GBP, or in other words 21K, and the account was set up in dollars while the deals were being signed in pounds, and that's why there is some mess here with the currencies. This way, when you know your customer acquisition cost of $1,700 in our case, and you know your average contract value, which was 8K pounds in our case, this means can now reverse engineer precisely how much he needs to reinvest in ads to add the next 1, 2, or 3 million in annual revenue. And just stop here for a second and imagine how much easier for you it would be to grow your company if you know that you simply need to put this much more money into this particular mechanism, or let's say meta ad campaign, for you to hit your next revenue target. And that's how you could be able to do financial planning years ahead rather than living in this quarter by quarter survival mode. So the fact that AMP has been turning 3.5k into 16k GBP for months doesn't guarantee you will achieve the same quicker. Every industry, niche, and solution is completely different. Moreover, as you've read, it took us quite some effort to get to such cost per demo, show operates, and deal cycles. Another thing for you to know here is that unless you launched your own campaigns, you really cannot predict what the KPIs should be looking like, because as I mentioned previously, every industry is completely different, and that's why for each type of solution there would be different benchmarks. But thanks to my knowledge of when to stop and when to put more effort, M was able to transition from costly events to content, and then from LinkedIn ads to Meta without wasting a ton of money and years of unnecessary effort. Due to his commitment to the program and his patient execution, he's been turning $1 into $5 to $7 from his 4th month inside, all while having a consistent, predictable, and scalable CAC, and converting buyers in weeks instead of months. Because for some reason I forgot to put it here, but as we transitioned from LinkedIn content towards instant forms and then to the sales deck funnel, we actually saw no increase in the sales cycle, and which is quite a nice thing for you to achieve from your paid traffic. Because if you can get someone to buy from paid channel as quickly as from organic, and in our case it was roughly between 1 and 2 months, which is months and months quicker from industry events they started with in the first place, you can be scaling your company a lot more effectively. Plus, we had LinkedIn content bring in additional deals all the entire time, and all these changes occurred because we built a predictable acquisition system that brings in high intent opportunities instead of simply going down in price and chasing low intent leads. And lastly, if you need help scaling your B2B SaaS, then I have something to share with you, because I can help you install a profitable meta ad system that only targets prospects who need your solution and have the budget for it. It's already been used by 150 different startups inside my program, 14 of which scaled past 1 million ARR exclusively with this system. So go to saascamp.com website to apply. Appreciate you watching this video, and talk soon.